Are you working in the business? Are you operating? Are you turning every knob? Or are you working on the company, growing the company? So most people start in this industry doing everything. And about 90% of the people in this industry get stuck there, where they can't get out of their own way, which ironically is how most small businesses, right? Most small businesses can't get beyond the owner because the owner has to do everything. And it's more of a mindset and a mindset shift.
What if growing your business wasn't about working more hours, but about thinking differently about leverage? On the podcast today, I'm joined by Sal Salpietro, also known as the ATM CEO. Sal has built and scaled an ATM business into a massive operation and now helps other entrepreneurs rethink how they create recurring income. We talk about what it really takes to move from hands-on hustle to scalable systems, why so many business owners stay stuck inside their operations, and how mindset plays a bigger role in growth than most people expect. One moment that stuck with me was when Sal described the difference between owning a business and feeling trapped inside one. It was blunt, but honest, and it framed the leadership shift required to scale. If you've been thinking about building something that runs with more structure and less strain, you are going to get a lot out of this one.
Welcome, guys. You are back with another session of the $1 Billion Brand. My name is Shaan Rais, and this is where we add massive values to founders and business owners who are looking to scale their brand into what we call the $1 billion stratosphere. And that's why, hence the name, $1 Billion Brand. Today, I have the phenomenal Sal Salpietro with me today. Sal, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Shaan. Thank you for having us here today. Very excited to be a guest here.
Thank you so much. So something very interesting. You have a very particular niche that you work in, and I just would like my listeners and the audience to understand the difference between a massively active business where they're responsible for every dial that gets turned, and then passive revenue, something they can invest in, something they have to take less of such of a managerial or hands-on approach to. Some people like soft money. As you grow your tenure in business, you kind of slow down, you pace yourself, and you want to, how do you say, mailbox money. So I wanted to have you on because I know you're a phenomenal owner, phenomenal business owner, and you're actually in the space of ATMs. Why don't you tell my listeners a little bit about that ATM space?
Yeah, absolutely. The ATM space is really unique, whereas most people don't realize that you can own and operate your own ATMs. A lot of people think that the ATMs belong to a bank. But when you go to a hotel, a restaurant, a convenience store, all those ATMs are primarily owned by individuals. Even the ones where you see bank names on them, that's usually a branding deal where they're hiring an operator like us to actually operate it and just put their name on it to give access to their customers. So it's a really unique industry.
Branding deals. So I heard the word brand. So as an individual, you're making investments in ATMs and then you're getting branding deals with huge organizations like banks, different financial institutions. Is that correct?
Exactly. So when you go into, let's say, a Walgreens and you see a Chase ATM sitting there, yes, most people think, hey, that's owned and operated by Chase, but it's really owned and operated by an ATM company like ours, to where they're putting a wrap and some advertising on there, and they're allowing their Chase customers to come there without charging them the fee. So Chase reimburses the ATM owner for allowing their customers to use that ATM for free, and then everybody else, they still get charged. They're massively profitable.
How long have you been doing this business?
In this company, just at 18 years, I started dabbling in the space back in 97, helping a friend out. And back then I was in the real estate industry. And a few years later, I ended up selling him a mega mansion. And I kicked myself for not getting more involved with him early on. And through that deal that I did with him, he said, "Hey, would you like to run a couple ATMs for me in Fort Lauderdale, Florida?" And I had no idea what that meant, but real estate market, we're going back to like '07, was starting to take a turn. And I said, you know what, this could be a good opportunity to offset, what's going on in the real estate market. And it just clicked with me. And I never looked back. And to your point, Sean, that you mentioned before about mailbox money, passive money, um, I grew up in the restaurant business where you were a slave, working 7 days a week, late nights, no holidays. Then I got into the real estate business as a real estate broker, to where I always felt, even though we were doing extremely well, you always feel unemployed because you're only as good as your next commission. Anybody who's in real estate understands that. This type of business, you literally go out and load your ATM machine, and people go and take money out. And every time someone takes money out, you're getting $3, $2.50, $4.99 all day long, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, and you're not there. So it clicked right away. It's like, wow, I found the holy grail, and we never looked back.
Wow. So as far as labor is concerned, that's all you do is you go load the money and then move away, and it's free money ever since.
Yeah. So to take a step back, they call me the ATM CEO. That's my name in the industry. I'm known as that in a national stage and even internationally now. The reason being is this is an industry. It's so easy to get into and to make money, like I just explained to you. But what happened is over the course of my career, I changed it, and I'm looking at it more of how you started. Are you working in the business? Are you operating? Are you turning every knob? Or are you working on the company, growing the company?
That's right.
So most people start in this industry doing everything. They're going out, they're loading their own ATM machines, they're installing them, they're repairing them, they're doing everything to run that business. And about 90% of the people in this industry get stuck there, where they can't get out of their own way, which ironically is how most small businesses, right? Most small businesses can't get beyond the owner because the owner has to do everything. And it's more of a mindset and a mindset shift for that owner of that company. But a few years ago, we made the decision during COVID. We've done very, very well running our business. What if we help other ATM operators get out of their own way? And the minute we did that, our company took off. And that's when the ATM CEO was born. Is what I did was everything that we created and grinded through and all the mistakes, we're allowing other ATM operators not to make them. And the ones that trust us are able to double, triple, quadruple their company in 12 months, 18 months, 24 months, because we're handling the day-to-day operations for them, and they get to concentrate on what they should be doing, which is growing their company,
Very good.
doing sales. So, to answer that question, it could be anywhere, right? You could be the guy doing a side hustle, working 1 day a week, making $2,000 a month, change your whole life as a side hustle. Or you can be like us, where we're on target in the next 24 months to hit somewhere, close to 500 million in the next 24 to 36 months. And again, we're doing it by helping other companies, which is the most rewarding part of what we do and the most rewarding part of my entire career.
Sal, you said you've been doing this for 18 years. You're about to do a $500 million business. And it's just amazing. Right now, you're doing operational oversight and implementation basically for other CEOs of the ATM business. Let me ask you this. How much does it cost to get started in the ATM business?
If you're doing it on your own, which we see that's where most people start, um, an average ATM machine all in is going to cost you around $2,500. And you're responsible for putting the money inside that machine. Most of the people that are putting the money inside their own machine, we recommend, and they don't ever listen to us. They always try to do it a little bit more bootstrapped, but we always recommend between $4,000 and $5,000 of liquidity that having that machine. Remember now, that is inventory. That's not an expense. So that's inventory that is always yours. That just circles. It's either physically inside of an ATM machine, and as people use that machine, the money goes back to your bank account. So for that person who's doing a side hustle, they get a handful of locations. On Friday, they go up to their local branch. They take out 20 grand in cash. They go to their barber where they have an ATM machine. They go to a barber. They go to their local bar. A lot of them will go to places where they already are going, and they load those ATM machines up, and then they don't have to go back for another week or two, depending on how they're doing.
You said something that's very interesting to me. You said someone takes the money and then the money ends up back in your account.
Mm-hmm.
Explain that.
When a customer walks up to an ATM machine and let's say they take out $200, that money automatically leaves the bank account of the consumer and then goes back into the bank account of the ATM operator. So that's why I said it's inventory, right? It's not an expense. It's just it's like anything else. If I have 10 machines and I allocate $5,000 for each, I have a bank account that I've got $50,000.
It's self-replenishing.
Self-replenishing. On those 10 machines, the only expense would be $25,000 for the original cost of the machines, which with the current tax environment is a 100% write-off year one.
Very good. You said 25,000 or 2,500?
Well, I said if you did 10 machines.
Okay, 10.
In that example, 10
good,
machines.
very
So it's 2,500 a machine.
This is very interesting to me, and I think my listeners are probably, their heads are probably spinning right now because this sounds to me like the old adage of one hand wash the other and both wash the face.
I like that.
That's one thing, but it also, it almost appears to be free money. I think we'll probably have a conversation on the back end about this because I love liquidity, I love lucrative, and this sounds like lazy money. So let me ask you, you're married, right?
I'm married, yes. One child.
I tell everybody my wife saved my life. So tell me, what does a day in the life look like? You're married, you have a son. What does a day in the life look like for the ATM CEO?
My life now is a lot different. Just a couple years ago, right? Going back to the whole mindset and mind shifting. When we made the decision to help others, we had to really reinvent our brand, our company. And the reason being is now it's not about us, it's about others. So we had to put the systems and processes in place to help them and to make sure that everything that we're doing is systemized to handle that growth. So day in my life now is really holding my team accountable, having meetings, making sure we're hitting the metrics and the KPIs that we're meant to hit, looking at where we've had failures in our process and figuring out, is it a people issue or a system issue? And then making those small tweaks. And then we keep moving forward. So that's really what we're doing now. And I got to tell you, one of the things that is different today than it was the first 15 years of this company was going back to where you said it sounds like free money. It sounds easy. The problem is that person who does it like that, pretty soon they become a slave because they're the only one that can load that ATM machine. They don't have any employees. If they've got to take a vacation, what if something happens while they're gone? So they pretty quickly, like in most small businesses, they want the freedom of owning their own business, but they're so small that they can't get away. So they basically created themselves a job, and not even a job, but a prison sentence because there is nobody else that can get away. So step one is to do that, right? To prove that you've got something that people want, whether it's a product or a service, you've got something that the marketplace wants. Once you're able to realize, hey, this is something that people want, then you quickly have to get yourself out of the way and systemize it so that way you're not the failure point. So going to your original question, what does the day in the life look like? Now I went from not having a vacation for years to we're vacationing all year round. And we've gone on vacation together, Sean, and very nice vacations.
That's
like
right.
right before I got on this podcast, I just flew in from the Bahamas between vacations and a lot of meetings. And that's the other thing is when you're running the day-to-day business, you're not able to be available for the business meetings or the business opportunities because you're too busy in the business. You don't have time to work on the business. So the other half of my time is traveling, working with people on how do I help them. We're in high acquisition mode right now. I think last year we did 12 acquisitions. Our goal this year in 2026 at a minimum is to do 25 million in acquisitions alone.
Let me ask you a question. I'm almost sure that you're in real estate, so I want to ask you, how strong was the leverage point of liquidity where you make money through the ATM, scaling that business, growing that business, and then you're able to move the liquidity into real estate assets?
Great segue. Before I was in this industry, I was in the real estate industry as a broker. I was a real estate investor, but I was in the wrong asset class, and we got wiped out, during the housing crisis. And then you learn from your mistakes. So now we're in different asset classes to where it's we take a portion of what we make and we buy commercial real estate. We get paid to sit and wait for values to go up. And that's what I loved about the ATM industry so much is it's so similar to real estate. What I mean by that is you get depreciation right away, right? These machines are like units that pay rent. You're getting that cash flow. And then you get the appreciation over time as you grow these routes. Where I like the ATMs actually better than real estate is if I buy a rental property and it's not doing well, I'm kind of stuck with that rental property. Because if it's not doing well, I can't sell it. Where with an ATM, if I've got a location that's not doing well, I literally pick it up and move it. So I've moved ATMs, 5, 6 times before I found the right home for it. So you're really able to maximize what you're able to make on the ATM side. But again, real estate, anything that gives you tax benefits and cash flow, and over time is even if it's going to appreciate at a slower rate, time is the item that most people don't understand. They're impatient.
Very good. So, as a visionary in your business, growing a team, having a marriage, having family, what is the degree of importance that you place on leadership?
Leadership is everything, right? Leadership is everything as a husband, as a father, and as a business owner, right? Um, if you don't exemplify excellence in what you do, how can you expect others to follow you? How can you hold others accountable? I'm one of those that, again, I'm not sure if it's right or not, but I lead from the front. I would never ask anybody in my company to do something that I haven't done or not willing to do. So when I grew this company, I was that guy who was out there 7 days a week, loading my own machines, doing everything. So when I ask a technician to do something or I ask him a question, not only am I very self-aware of what he's going to have to do on those hard days, because I've done it myself, I also know you can't bullshit me about what's going on because I've worked my way up through the ranks. I'm not an executive who's like talking down to people and don't understand what it actually entails. So, that's where I say I lead from the front. I'm the guy who's charging in and I say, follow me. And then I've got other people in my team who are like, hey, Sal, slow down. They're pulling me back a little bit saying, we've got to look at certain things here. We appreciate you want to be the one. But every time you're in the front, you're not looking at the whole playfield. So it's a little bit of a balance. But again, without proper leadership, you have chaos.
Very good. Very good. Hey, really quick. Did you know that most leaders don't have a revenue problem? They have a positioning problem. If you're leading at a high level and know your brand should be working harder for you than it is right now, my team and I offer a curated small number of strategy calls each month. This is not for everyone, but if you're a leader who knows your expertise deserves a bigger platform and you are open to a working session where we look at your leadership, your positioning, and whether there's a clear path to scale your influence and impact so you can have independence. If that sounds like you and the conversation that you need, you can book a call directly with me here now. Go to www.shanrais.com and click book a call. Once again, it's www.shanrais.com, or just click the link in the show notes. Now back to the show. Sal, let me ask you a question, because a lot of people, they just love to teach. They love to just open their mouth. You know what they say? They say everybody with a mouth is not a speaker, right? And everybody with an idea is not a teacher. So as one whose content is evidence-based, as opposed to concept and theory, how do people get started, and can they get started with you being someone who actually has results in this space?
One of the things that we did when we transitioned to help other people in this space, we looked at it and said, well, how do we position ourselves to be the leader in operational support for other ATM companies? And one of the first things we did was we became it's called an ISO. So we are an ATM ISO. So what that means is we are the conduit between the consumer banks, the sponsor banks, and the networks like Visa and MasterCard. So we're responsible for compliance and making everything work. Everybody thought we were crazy because this was only about 3-4 years ago of doing this, because everybody was giving it up because there's not that much money in it like it used to be. And there's a lot of risk as far as compliance and fines. And to me, it wasn't about the money. It was, if I am going to truly help other people, I need to be that person to control that part of the process so I can truly help them. Where other people are resellers and they are online saying that they're the person, but they're not. They're like 2-3 people down the line. So when something happens, they've got no ability to actually help that person. So again, I've always bucked the trend, always was a contrarian. When we decided to do it, we said we're going to do it the right way. We became an ATM ISO, and for the last 2 years, we are the fastest growing ATM ISO in the United States. It's working, right? The first thing someone wants to do when they get into this space is to find an ATM ISO that can help them. And that's where we are. And to answer some of those questions of how do we help them? Do we have a course? What type of support do we offer? When we first started, we had a course. We had it out there for about 6 months, and we turned it off. And the reason why I turned it off was I really wanted to help people. And we were getting a lot of people that liked the idea of what we're doing, but they weren't really ready or willing to do the work. And to me, we're going to reissue that course in 2026 with some updates to get people a real understanding of what it is to be in this industry. But I found it was much more useful to help people at the higher level. So we started doing it more of like a consultation, working one-on-one with the people that really wanted to do a lot more in this industry. And now in 2026, we're launching our own fund, the ATM fund, in order to do these massive roll-ups that we're talking about. Because there's a lot of people that are like, I love what you're doing. I want that mailbox money.
That's right.
I don't want to have to grind that first year to understand the business. I'd rather give you my money and have you do that.
That's right.
So the way that it really makes sense is to do massive roll-ups. And I am the guest speaker at the ATM International Association conference this year, where my TED Talk, for lack of a better term, is about this opportunity right now where we're seeing baby boomers start to want to exit the market, but not have the right exit or the right opportunity of buyers, to where we're seeing a massive transfer of wealth, primarily in spaces like ours, where there's service-based businesses. And where I find this industry really unique is it is a brick and mortar type of a business, access to cash. Whereas there's so many new technologies coming out with crypto and blockchain, and the way that people are using money and opportunities to support those merchants, that where we have those ATMs, we're going to see in the next 3 to 5 years a massive change in how a lot of this technology gets adopted by the marketplace. And we're positioned in a place where we are those final 2 feet of where that technology gets implemented. And the quicker we roll up, the more opportunity and the more upside there is to take advantage of that. And the sellers that are retiring, they don't understand that. So we're picking up businesses at fair market value, but not the future value. So we're bringing a lot of investors with us along for the ride, where they're getting paid this mailbox money to come along for this ride with this potential massive upside.
Huge, huge. So I'm taking notes while you're speaking, and I'm just writing down words like innovation, disruption, soft money, hard money. An interesting correlation is that we began with a course called Branded Like a Leader, teaching branding conceptually. And then we learned that the people didn't have the time. The business owners just didn't have the time to actually do it, or the transitioning professionals didn't have the time. They didn't have the team. They weren't able to do all the things that we were talking about doing. It seems so easy to us because we were so successful doing it, but then trying to teach it in retrospect, the people that were trying to pick it up just couldn't. It was way too heavy. So we transitioned our model from information to implementation, where we actually build the brands for the clients, and we've had a massive success rate since then. And it sounds like I'm seeing the correlation between you teaching them what to do through a course and then actually doing it for them, to actually just taking the money and doing the whole thing yourself, because you know exactly what to do and you know where the potholes are. That's amazing. And the one thing that I wrote down as well is that you mentioned something about people being 3 layers down. And what that reminded me of was like on a leg, like network marketing. Like they're on legs of network marketing where there's a single source of truth at the top. But in this reality, you would be that source of truth.
Correct.
Very, very
Correct.
interesting. I hope my listeners are paying attention and really taking a lot of notes and understanding the opportunity that we're putting in front of them, as well as the authenticity of the individual. So let me ask you a question, because I ask all my guests this question. Where did you start? What's your education level?
I went to the University of Miami in the 90s. I love education. Throughout the years, I realized that it's not as important as people think it is.
Mhm.
Let me take another step back. I come from an immigrant family.
Okay,
I'm the first one in my family born in the States. Both my parents are from Italy.
nice.
I had the privilege of watching my parents go from being like waiters and all the way to when my father retired a few years ago, having 8 fine dining restaurants throughout New Jersey, and becoming massively successful.
Let me make sure I'm understanding this correctly. Your father went from first generation from Italy, right? And then he was a waiter, and then he went from a waiter to an owner.
An owner, and then had 8 restaurants by the time he retired.
Let me ask you a question. What do you think the difference is between the work ethic of people who immigrate from another country and the people who are born here, man?
We could have a whole entire podcast
That's a
on
whole
just that
nother
alone.
conversation, isn't it?
But the truth is, I might get flack for saying, but people in this country, they feel like they're owed.
Mm.
Where when someone gets the opportunity to come from another country, and again, even some of the immigrants today don't quite get it like they did back then, is my parents just wanted the opportunity because they came from a beautiful country, but there even today there's very, very limited opportunity. And all they want is a chance. Just give me a chance and let me do what I can
Let
do.
me work.
Yeah, especially in this newest generation, because we see it with people when we're looking at hiring. They feel like everything is owed to them. Everybody's afraid to say anything to anybody. Like the hard work is a bad word. It's like a curse word.
Yes, sir. With work-life balance, right? Instead of work-life success and integration.
Yeah. So going back to again to the original, my education, my parents put a lot on education because they didn't have any. Yeah, my dad is a fifth grade education. That's all that you get in Italy, if unless you're going to pay for it, at least back then. And because of that, they put a lot of emphasis on education in this country. I went to the University of Miami on scholarship. It was a great opportunity. From there, I went to Florida International University, and then later on in life, my wife and I we decided to get our MBAs together at a university called Nova Southeastern University. The truth of it all, I probably got a better education overall by spending time and learning from people like yourself. This is a fact, right? Because what I found is, again, I have an MBA, highly educated. What you're mostly studying, honestly, is history. You're a marketing guy, you're talking about branding. The things that they're teaching in marketing right now in university were things that were relevant just 2 years ago. You know better than anybody else what was happening last year. Like they're teaching SEO. They're not teaching GEO. They're not teaching AI. They're not teaching how everything in marketing is completely different. So the person who is actually out there doing it right now is going to have a massive advantage to the person who goes to school to study marketing. How is that right?
It's very interesting. I remember when I got out of school, and I have 3 master's degrees myself, and I remember when I got out of theory and got into application, when I had my first internship, the person who was assigned to me, someone you follow, right? So I'm shadowing a guy, and he says, "Keep your hands in your pockets, don't touch anything." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He said, "Don't touch anything because anything you touch will break. Leave the books at home. Everything that he said, you need to forget everything you learned
Yeah.
and realize what's really going on." And that was my introduction to the real world. So to your
Yeah.
point, 1000%. I think that we learn a lot of good habits in college: routine, discipline, the ability to concentrate and focus on a single project and get it done, completion, getting things done is something that we learn in college. But when it comes to applicable, real time, like you just said, SEO and AI is two different worlds. Two different worlds. And I realized this too, that the people that were teaching in college were just that. They were teaching, they weren't business owners. So how do I learn business from a person who's not a business owner? And all they were doing was actually, as a matter of fact, you'll become the case study. You are the living case study that they'll talk about in future textbooks about ATM roll-ups and ISOs. So you're living the reality that will become the theory that a non-practitioner teaches a decade from now.
The landscape is completely different. To your point, you learn how to learn. You learn how to be responsible. I think unless you're looking at advanced studies, engineer, doctor, attorney, I think honestly you can learn more about what you're going to be doing, especially with the implementation of AI. Like I've got a 13-year-old son. I go to tell him things and he chat GPTs the heck out of me to show me where I'm wrong. And I'm looking and it's bringing things in there that are like so cutting edge and new. And I'll have to actually say, yeah, don't believe everything you're reading, and I'll tweak it, show him like this. It's pretty darn close. Like he can look something up and be 90% there. And we're even implementing it into our company like crazy to where something
Yeah.
like a special project might take us 90 days, and it takes the first month for somebody to like get to where we need to be. They're coming to me at the end of the first day, having a framework for implementing something at the
That's
end of the
right.
first day, where normally would have taken a month of multiple people to do this using AI. It's pretty exciting to see where technology is going, education is going to go.
Let me put you on the spotlight, put you in the hot seat. The course is coming. The course is being redone, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And the book is coming. You're writing the book, correct?
We are writing the book.
Where
Yes,
is it that you're speaking and what is the date?
we're speaking at the ATM IA convention. It's in Arlington, Texas this year. And I believe it's February 17th and 18th.
Okay, very good. Now, let me ask you this. Where can people get in contact with you to learn from the single source of truth here?
You can go to our main website, atm-up.com, or you can find me on social media and DM me at the ATM CEO.
Very good. And we're going to have all of those links below. Let me ask you a question as well. As an accomplished business owner, father, international, just a world citizen, what is your advice to someone who's at 10 million, maybe 15, trying to scale their business and find themselves in that bottleneck?
Two things. One, raise your belief lid. You can only go as far as you think you can go, and your belief lid holds your entire team back, period. Nobody who's working for you can achieve higher than your belief lid. So where that was a fundamental mind shift that I had to make, being a lifelong business owner. And when I made that shift, people always say, "How did you go so fast in the last couple of years?" And I can attribute it wasn't to we didn't get investors, we didn't do anything different except number one, raise my belief lid that I can do it. It was a choice, right? And then second, work on the processes and systems in your company that you can repeat everything that you're doing that's making the company successful so you can hand those things off to other people and not yourself. Those two things will transform your entire company.
I know that every time I ask you a question about you specifically, you say we. Every time I say you're speaking, you say we. Every time I say the success that you've had, you say we. When I say the great things that you've done, you say we. What is the importance of the we, and what do you mean by that?
My company is nothing without the people, right? I never look at anything I do as I, as you can see. Like it's not even something that I wasn't even aware I was doing that until you just brought that up right now. And there's something to be said uh, about being a we leader, right? And that's part of what I was alluding to earlier of being an I leader versus they say a me leader versus a we leader. That's part of that shift of being going from a me leader to a we leader, and that's something that we even work with people in our company, right? Because they can be great at what their task is, but until they can make that own mind shift of their own, how did I go from being a me leader, worrying about what my tasks are, to a we leader? They can't move up within the company and be responsible and be in leadership and management. Because if you're a me leader trying to manage and lead other people, those other people won't follow you.
Whew. Star player and a star coach. Big difference, huh?
Big difference.
Big difference with.
You could be both. You could be both, but you can't be both at the same time.
That's right. So you look at a Kobe or a Michael Jordan, and then you look at a Phil Jackson, who some would say is responsible for both of their success. It's unbelievable. It's like worlds, diametric worlds apart. How important is mentorship in business?
Oh, it's everything. So two things that I personally always do is one, I look to mentor people and I seek out mentors at the same time. If you're not growing, you're dying. That's a really popular, saying. The other saying is, if you're the richest or smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. So you always need to seek out mentors because you don't know what you don't know, right? And you don't necessarily have access to the things that you need until you need them, right? If you don't have those mentors, you don't have access to what you need at that time because you only have access to what you've needed, past tense, right?
Right.
So it's very important to have mentors, and then it's just as important to realize that if you need mentors, to be a mentor. And being a mentor, like I said earlier, is the most rewarding part of everything I've done. Is actually being able to take a lifelong's work and then give back by helping other people not just do it, but do it better and faster, right? Because when you're the person having falling in those potholes and losing time and getting screwed over, and you're able to help somebody else not have that happen, it's extremely rewarding. There's another good saying is you're doing that not for that person either. You're doing that because that's what you do, right? So, like, you might go to mentor somebody and they might be the most disappointing person you ever dealt with. They might try to steal your business. They might have screwed you over. All those things have happened. They might have stolen from you.
That's right.
Everything I just said has happened to me. We could have a whole entire series on that. Now, if I let that stop me from mentoring the next person, I'm actually slowing down my own growth, right? So I'm not doing it for them, right? That person is there and I want to help them. But what they do with that opportunity is 100% their responsibility, right? I'm not responsible for their success. I'm responsible for giving them that opportunity. Whether they listen, whether they're successful at it, that lies on their shoulders. And my job is to help as many people in this world. That I feel that that's what God has bestowed on me as, like, that's my gift, right? So I have to lean into that.
I always say that business is a very spiritual game, and we end up here as we peel back the layers. So some things that I wrote was repetition deepens the impression. So as you teach, you learn. And you deepen the learning, and you never forget the learning that you constantly use, because muscle not flexed atrophies, right? So if you're not constantly teaching and delivering the value, then you become less and less valuable. Another thing that I wrote down was, before becoming a great mentor, try to be a great mentee, because we have to be able to learn from others so we understand how to transfer the knowledge. And I think we probably both at some point can say that we were probably guilty of not being the most appreciative, the most open, the most soaking in application oriented mentee at one time, right? And then, so the core, coming back to the core of spirituality, how important is having a spiritual sense and a purpose? You mentioned God, so I kind of can focus, like, identify the belief system, but how important is having that aspect in something as hard as scaling a business and a family at the same time?
Having that as a cornerstone in your life, number one, it grounds you. And then secondly, it makes you part of something bigger than yourself. And to be something bigger than yourself means that there's value that you're creating that goes beyond time, right? It goes beyond your time here. You never know when your last day is. And that's like one of those things that I hear people can't wait to retire. I've got friends and relatives, they're like checking off on a calendar till that retirement day. To me, I'll never retire, right?
That's right.
Money is really a byproduct of having a life's work, right? So the money is a way to keep score, but the money isn't the ultimate end game. So where people tie the amount of money that they have to a time that they can stop being useful, think what that's doing to their to everything. Think what they're doing to their mindset. Think to what that's doing to their body. They're telling their body, hang out until this moment, and then you're going to shut off. That's why most people, there's some statistics about when people retire, how quickly they die afterwards.
Yes, sir.
They're signaling to their body that you're done. They're signaling to their mind. They stop using their mind for what it's meant to be for, right? And then going back to the spirituality, they stop having the opportunity to be of service. They go from living a life of abundance to a life of scarcity, because now I'm retired. Now I have to conserve. I have to be careful what I give. No more risk. That messes up that entire flow that's happening. Depending on whatever your belief is, you have to have that flow. So for me, I never want to stop giving back.
That's right.
I never want to ever. Like, to me, when I see a retiree, like, it's like you're in the waiting room to your next life. How much do you hate sitting in a waiting room to go see a doctor or anybody else? Why would you want to be there?
Guys, this is why we call this the $1 billion brand, because the conversations that we have here transcend monetary value. You know what I said when I began, Sal? I said we put people over profit, value over valuation, and impact over income. These are the kind of conversations where you feel like $1 billion and then you can go make $1 billion. And even if you don't hit the number, you surpass the number spiritually, physically, relationally, communication wise. These are those conversations, man. So thank you very much, because I feel like we could go on and on and on. I love idea. I love repartee. I love hitting, the volleyball back and forth. This has been so valuable to me. I get to know you better. I thank you for that. I greatly appreciate you opening up about your family, about your education, about your relationship. Two more questions. How important is the union between man and woman, your wife, your spouse, and your business?
Truly, she keeps me grounded. We've been together for 23 years. We're married for 20. February, we're going to have our 20th, anniversary. And anybody who's been married can tell you it's not easy. You're going to have ups and downs. The thing is to be committed, right? And to be aligned and to concentrate on the bigger picture that you've created for your family. Let me go through that. Let's say I want to have $1 billion company. My wife just wants my time. We're not aligned. And we're going to fight about things that I'm not going to understand why she's upset. She's not going to understand why I'm upset, because I'm trying to grow something that she doesn't want. She wants my time. So I don't have it because I'm trying to give her something that she doesn't even need or desire. So it is just so important to be on the same page as a couple, and then also keep checking in on those things. Are you still on the same page? Because if you're both aligned on building $1 billion company, are we fighting about the garbage didn't go out on time yesterday? And if we are, we have to remind ourselves, does this fight help us or hurt us in the bigger picture
That's
here?
right.
What are we trying to do here? And a lot of our silly arguments, they end up going away, right? I would not be here today if it wasn't for my wife. Anybody who knows her knows I always say people like me, but they love her.
Ooh, nice.
I was listening to a podcast the other day where they were saying your spouse is a reflection of you. If you want to know how somebody thinks of themselves, look at their spouse. Or people, you don't even realize that when people are looking at doing business with you or looking at partnerships with you, they look at that kind of stuff. If you're a playboy or a womanizer, or you're a bad spouse, what does that say about your work ethic? What does that say? What kind of a partner you're going to be, your morals? All those things are really important. Or if you don't treat your spouse properly, what does that actually say about you?
There's certain offices in the government, in the military, in politics, in religion that you can't even hold if you're not married.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Oh,
Wow.
yeah, you can't be the president of the United States if you're not married. You can't be a general of the army in a specific level if you're not married. Like, that is an indication of your discipline, stability, reliability, validity, all of it.
I just want to be clear. I'm not saying if you're not in a good relationship that you should be staying in that relationship. That's not what I'm advocating.
Of course not.
What I'm saying is that so many people are egocentric and they think about themselves and they're looking at their partner as something that they're just fitting in instead of being the foundation, like how you said. Like I look at my marriage as the foundation, the bedrock that everything else is built upon.
That's right.
It's not a piece that comes in where some people are like, hey, I've got to get married, like I'm missing a piece. Right. And they just grab it and they end up in an unhappy marriage or with a spouse that is not aligned with them because in my mind, they're not looking at it, in the beginning of what they're looking at. And again, was I looking for that when 20 something years ago? I don't think so. I just got really lucky and finding an amazing woman. And then I stuck with it. Right. She's a better person than I am.
I love to hear the way, men edify their wife, because I feel the same thing. It's God first, family next, and then business. 100%. And without that spouse to complete you, you're kind of missing it. And a lot of times you said something about a missing piece. Sometimes it's literally missing piece inside of yourself that'll allow you to keep finding the same person. When people say, oh, all men are the same or all women are the same, it's probably because you're the same and you haven't really taken a good introspective look and changed that. My final question, I promise, because we could go on and on. How important is branding and personal branding in your business?
Early on, it wasn't a big deal, right? I mean, I say it wasn't a big deal. We always had a name, we always leaned into our name. But as far as looking at branding and marketing as a bigger piece, it was only when I made the decision that I wanted to own and be a bigger company, right? So when you're basically running a small business, if you're a hustler and you're going to work, you're going to be able to build a business around yourself that can support you. But again, you become a slave to that business, right? When you want to take it to the next level, you cannot do it without branding. Period. And the conversation. Without branding, you cannot go to the next level.
Let's go. Thank you so much for your time, Sal. I greatly appreciate it. Guys, we're going to leave all of Sal's contact information below this in the descriptive. Watch this over and over again. Reach out to him directly. He's a really good, generous, quality individual, and he will speak to you. He will connect you with who you need to know. If it's not him, but 9 times out of 10, he'll probably be the person that you want to know. ATM CEO Sal, thank you so much for your time. I greatly appreciate it. And this has been another edition of The $1 Billion Brand.